All right. So on today's episode, we really want to talk about self-berating talk that women seem to have internally running in their own heads at almost all times, that they have in relationships with people that they are partnered with when they are together as women talking. So what made me want to have this conversation before we went on camera is I was sharing something with you, Ava, that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
So I had just spent a couple of days with my mom and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law and my husband. So the six of us were together for quite a few days, and it was amazing. We had the most incredible time. But a theme that I noticed that was running the whole time we were together, and it finally just tipped over to the point where I had to finally say something yesterday afternoon at lunch, was this theme around my mom and my mother-in-law, as we were reflecting on, let's just say, for example, all the food that we were eating on this trip, this incredible food we were eating. Of course, we were talking about like how amazing it was, which one was our favorite meal, and which one we found to be like the best dessert, and which one we wish we knew the recipe to so we could make it. We had all the fun conversations. But what it always seemed to come back to was then the women, none of the men, the women getting into this energy, the two women that I was observing, about almost now there needed to be punishment on their bodies because they had all this good food, that now they were like, oh my gosh, disgusted with the weight they'd gained, or they were disappointed in themselves that they couldn't control the portions, that they wanted more, that it was so fabulous. And it went on and on. And I'm not going to get into the details of what was said, but the point that I really want to make and talk about with you is, as I sat, I literally pushed my seat back and watched it happen. Watched the two of them just sharing about, it's almost like who could one up the other about how much they didn't like their body.
That's something that I feel like I see. Like I feel like it's almost just this it's sometimes it's maybe if you don't even know what to talk about, it's like it's a default for women no matter what age you are. I feel like it's like, oh well you think that's bad? Well, I have this, or oh my
Mm,
God, I hate that about me too. It's like a bonding thing.
you're exactly
Which
right.
is problematic, but it is in every age. So that's clearly like what's happening here. And the thing is that they don't even realize how problematic it is.
You are exactly right. And that is why, through the lens, obviously, that I approach so many things, I see a lot of things play out maybe differently than we have been conditioned as women. So in that moment, I sat back and I was observing, and I was even observing myself. And I had a thought that 15 years ago, I probably would have been participating in that conversation.
Yeah.
I probably would have been saying, oh, I know, I'm going to have to go home and like, oh, have like a water diet now or something. I don't know, like what I would have said, or been really self-conscious of the fact that I had also, gained weight on that trip. So I thought about how 15 years ago, that version of me would have been in that energy. But standing where I stand now, I saw it so differently. So I pushed my chair back and I just sat there and watched it keep playing out and playing out. And I finally said to everybody at the table, does anybody recognize what's just happened? And everybody looked at me like,
Because everybody there's normalized to it. Like not just them, like the men are just normalized to hearing women talk that way too. So they're
yes.
just sitting there and like it's whatever. It's normal for everyone.
Yes. So now, meanwhile, as they're berating themselves and now they're going head to toe, like all aspects of their body, the men have not done any of this. They've not participated in any of that commentary towards themselves or about the women. They're just sitting there like listening. And you're right. I think it's normalized for them to hear women do this. And I said to them both, I said to everyone at the table, so if the women before me are supposed to be my role models, how do you think I experience as a 51-year-old? How do you think it feels for me as a woman to sit here and listen to these two women who are my role models? They are leading the way.
Who are beautiful and amazing, by the way. Which
Right.
is so sad. It's like, so now they're just that.
Right.
Like it's just and that's what's so hard. It's like you can see them for so many things and look up to them for so many things, and yet when it's like this, it's like that's all they really see of themselves.
They
That's all they
diminish
take
them.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they diminish themselves down to just this physical form. And, and so I said, is this what I have to look forward to? At 83 and 75, is this how it gets to be? Does it ever end? Do you ever feel exhausted by this conversation? Do you want a different narrative? Do you want to talk about something else? And of course, we do talk about other things, but that just seems to be the undercurrent that was in whether we were getting in and out of like this little boat that we were taking around to the islands, whether it was like after getting dressed for dinner, whether it was something about the humidity in the air and their hair. It just felt like it was in every conversation somehow came back to let me berate myself and rip myself down. And even when someone was giving them a compliment, it's like, I'm going to hand you this gift because I see compliments as a gift. Someone is telling you something and you literally push it back in their face and say, I don't want it. I don't believe it. It's not true. I don't like that. And so even the inability to receive genuine, heartfelt words takes away my desire to even say it anymore.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share with you, like, those are my thoughts. And I sat there and I was really sad, to be honest about it. And I'm sure there are people listening like, oh my gosh, it's not that big of a deal. It actually is that big of a deal that we constantly run the storyline. And why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because I became very aware of the fact about 15 years ago when a lot of light bulbs started going off for me, that if you watched me do that your whole formative years as a woman and beyond, what message is that I'm teaching you about how you should feel about yourself?
It's a bad one.
Yeah. So let's have this conversation. Like, I'm just curious your thoughts on what I saw play out over the entire weekend. And it kind of came to a head yesterday when I said something about it.
Well, I think being 21 and growing up with social media, and I guess just everything that I've grown up with and the way that the world is for my generation, it's really hard not to feel that way a lot of the times. It's really hard not to compare yourself and to never really feel good enough, and like the toxic beauty culture that we talk about all the time. But I think it does help a lot to have a mom who doesn't feel that way, because it would only be 15 times worse if you did. So it's inevitable that I'm going to struggle with it still, because again, I am my own person and you've been able to find this new version of yourself and this new outlook on life and yourself that I hope that I'll get to. And I think I have over time gotten better at it, but I can't imagine how much harder it would be to not have somebody who I can at least look to and like, I hope to be like that, because that's what most people don't have. I mean, and so it is hard, like just in general, but it would be a million times harder if I didn't have a role model like you to kind of make me feel almost bad for feeling bad about myself. Like, and not the other way around. Like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, she would get so mad if she like knew that I was thinking that way, which it is inevitable. Like it would be pretty much impossible for me to never be self-conscious about anything or for me to never feel that way. But it is important to at least be aware of how it's problematic. But I feel like in that conversation between them and conversations between any women, it's almost like, and not even just one, like it could be a whole group. It almost feels like if one person says something, everybody feels the need to then add something on, because they either don't want that woman to feel alone or because they feel awkward and they don't know what else to do. And it's like, it's just this thing that it has to happen. Like
you're right.
Yeah, it's like somebody will say something and they're like, oh, well, I feel this way. And it's like, instead, maybe don't say anything.
Okay, let's play that out. So what do you think keeps women? Because you're right, so many women commiserate in the misery. It's almost like you said at the beginning, it's a bonding, a form of bonding.
It 100% is.
And so what do you think would happen? Like, just imagine you're sitting around with a group of your female friends and everyone's like saying something about themselves that's really negative, whether it's about a talent, a skill set, or their brains and their body, just anything. And you came in, how do you imagine this going? You came in with the exact opposite thing. So they're all talking about something they're really, really struggling with. And you say, oh my gosh, I really enjoy that. It's like one of my favorite favorite things to do. I don't know, let's just pretend it's algebra or something. And you talk about how you love trying to solve the equations and it gets you so excited. You're really passionate about it. And it's always been something that came naturally to you. How do you imagine the group? And I'm taking it off of body for just a moment. We'll come back to that.
Because I think something about algebra is going to be much different than physical things, but it kind of, I mean, it would depend like who the friends were, because it depends if there's a lot of women who say they want you to do well and say they want you to love yourself until you do.
As
So,
evidenced by Taylor Swift.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And just some of my own friends, like over the
Yes.
years, I've noticed there's a lot of friends who genuinely want me to do well, whether that's like physically looking good or like being mentally well or doing well in school or just like having big accomplishments. And then there's friends who I can tell get uncomfortable by it.
Oh, yeah.
So that definitely has impacted like some of my relationships. But I think that's a big factor. It depends who you're saying that to. I don't know. I think some people, if they're, because it's hard because there's some people I know who feel that way about themselves and yet they're secure with somebody else being secure. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's people who are so insecure that they're not secure with somebody else being secure.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on the people. I feel like it's not just one certain response.
Right.
But I think they'd be shocked
Yeah.
regardless. I think they'd be kind of like confused. They wouldn't expect that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in that scenario where it wasn't just randomly like everybody's already berating themselves. I
Mm-hmm.
think they would just it's just like default. Like they just
Yes.
expect you to add
Absolutely.
on.
It's almost this question. I think I used to play with this energy a couple years ago, this idea of who does she think she is? Like to love herself that much. Who does she think she is to be
Yeah.
that free in her body with all that gray hair?
Yeah.
Who does she think she is to show up to the beach in a bathing suit looking like that? Who does she think she is to say something so bold and confidently about herself and have an opinion that is opposite everyone else in the room?
Yeah.
So when I really started challenging myself to be more in the energy of who does she think she is, I was doing it from an energy of, and now it's just so solid inside of me that it's a natural way I show up. But I was doing it from an energy of, we have got to have different role models for women and how we show up. It
Yeah.
cannot always be the story of the woman who is berating herself and down on herself. I teach women self-love. You cannot teach a woman self-love if she's in this constant throwing herself under the table, making negative comments all the time. The two they can't coexist.
Yeah.
And so teaching women how to love themselves comes sometimes with a flair of helping them step into, what if you played with the energy of who does she think she is
Yeah.
every time you walk into a room? And that can be really fun and so opposite culturally what we've ever been told to do as women. We're always told to play it down, hide, be pleasing, be small. Don't make sure your outfit when you go to the party doesn't call the attention of too many men and also doesn't threaten other women. It's
Yeah.
that tricky line. And it's been so freeing just stepping into, I'm just going to express my thoughts, my feelings through my clothing, through my words all the time and not
I
even think.
think the important thing to realize is that even if you do wear what you think people want you to wear and you do say what you think people want you to say, it still won't be good enough because
You're
you'll
right.
never win. You
Right.
will literally never win. Nobody will ever. You won't have everybody always liking you. You won't like no matter what you do.
So
Literally, no matter
true.
what you do, just because you're a woman, like no matter what you do. And this is like you talk about Taylor Swift. It's not just her. I mean, she's definitely like the main example of that because
Right.
she's so famous and because so many things have been going on surrounding her and so much controversy. But it's
Oh,
anyone,
yes.
especially in the light like that, like anybody who's famous, just because they're a woman, they'll never ever ever win, and so they
100%.
just have to do what's right for them. And that's any woman. Like you just have to do what's right for you. You have to say what's right for you because there's always going to be people who disagree. Even if you're trying, working your ass off to be this perfect person, you're never going to please anybody.
It's so true. And that's why pleasing yourself and staying true to yourself is the most important. But coming back to this idea of, okay, I use the algebra as an example. Let's say you're sitting around with a group of girlfriends, or you're all getting ready to go out at night. That would probably be a better example. You're getting ready to go out and everybody's together, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're all like near each other, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I look terrible in this outfit, or I feel so
Which
bloated, or
happens all the time.
yes.
And I am a part of that a lot of times because it's just natural. Like you just can't even help it. But like, and it's because if you're hearing somebody else say it, you're probably thinking the same thing. You know, it's just something that just happens, but
All
that
right.
is a very common thing.
So let me ask you this. So take yourself back to, a more recent time where maybe you were doing that. You were commiserating in the misery and everyone's complaining about how they look, and you jump on that bandwagon. Just for a moment, try on in your body. If you were to, everyone's saying something negative about themselves, and you're standing in the mirror next to all your girlfriends, and you say, I look amazing. I love the way my hair came out tonight. I love this outfit. I am so excited to go out and celebrate with all of you. I feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
How do those words feel? And imagining yourself saying them out loud in front of your friends when they'd all just said something really negative.
Yeah, that it would feel weird, I
Why?
think. Well, I mean, if I really felt that way, if I really felt like I really liked my hair, I mean, sometimes I'll say things like that, like, oh, I actually really like my makeup, or like, I really like the way I really love this outfit, or like, if I'm borrowing one of my friends' thing, I'll say, like, I love it so much, or whatever. Like, I do say those things. And I don't think it, like, I don't know. I think literally if everyone was just going back and forth saying awful things and I said something like that big of a statement saying like everything, then okay, yeah, they'd probably just be like confused, or not confused, but like it would just be a little awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's like you can't say good things about yourself. I just think it's like it just kind of depends the scenario where it would be weird or not. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not that, at least my friends, they do say really good things about themselves too. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it just kind of sucks that you can't just have one without the other. Like there's always,
Yeah.
you're always going to feel like if you don't feel good, you're going to feel terrible. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you don't love your hair, you hate it.
Yes.
So, and that's,
There's no
yeah,
like in between.
yeah,
It's not neutral.
yeah.
It's not like, well, it's just neutral tonight. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, it's like you just get so mad if it's not perfect
Right.
because we just want to be perfect.
Yeah. So I saw lots of examples of that this weekend where, still taking into consideration, obviously, the ages of everyone who is with us, 3 people in their 80s, one person in their 70s. It was interesting to watch the participation of everybody in relation to how what they did and did not engage in. Let's just say that, based on whether they were worried about the humidity and how it was going to affect their hair, or whether they were worried about how they would look doing something rather than the experience doing the thing. And so my point for that is, I was just in this observation of how much of life gets missed out on
Yeah.
when you're worried about how you look while you're living your life, as opposed to how you just feel, making the memories, being in the moments when your 5 senses are engaged. And I stood there on a couple of occasions thinking, I really don't want that to happen to me. And I was actually fast forwarding and thinking about you when you're older, and all of your siblings, and we're all somewhere, and me having an opportunity to experience something and then maybe not experiencing it because I'm worried I'm not going to look good while I'm experiencing it, as opposed to, yes, let's go. I want to do the thing.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, what are your thoughts? Do you feel like there have been pieces and parts of your life where you've really missed out on being in the moment, like
Yeah.
really in the moment, because you were internally
Yeah.
so self-conscious of how you looked that night?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
More times than I want, It's, yeah, I would definitely say yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that feels really sad to me.
Yeah.
It feels sad to me that moments of, and it happened to me when I was younger too, a lot. And I will never get those moments of my life back. I think
Yeah.
about the times when I a lot of times, even when you were younger, you kids. And I was very strategic, which you probably all never knew, but I was very strategic about how I would get up if we were at a pool at a hotel or we were at a crowded beach, because I was so almost crippled and self-conscious of my cellulite on the backs of my thighs that I was strategic about how I would get up, how many people were watching, how quickly I would jump into the water and then stay there for a very long time with you guys, or sit in the sand for a very long time, so that it would keep me from having to worry about what people were thinking about the backs of my thighs, because that's how crippling it was for me for so many years. And I had this realization about 3 years ago. I was alone on the beach and I was writing in my journal, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I started crying because I thought, that is so sad. That is so sad that I'll never get those moments back again, where I missed doing more than being submerged in the water or sitting down so that no one could see my cellulite, as opposed to just walking and being or frolicking and playing more. And that makes me sad, and had me wondering where else am I missing being in my life, because I'm worried about how something looks, or God forbid, what somebody else thinks about how I look.
Yeah. It's I mean, I didn't really know that about you, but
Well, because now that I've been so conscious of it the last several years, I've really worked hard. It's still an internal dialogue that's happening, but I work really hard with myself to not let it play out and paralyze me anymore. But it takes self-talk. It really takes self-talk to get myself like up off of the beach chair into the water. I do it, but it is not effortless. I will say that. It's such a deep internal shame and programming that says I should not have cellulite on the backs of my legs. It's unsightly. And why am I not doing anything about it? And the only offerings of anything to do about it, aside from like lymphatic drainage massage, would be like buying really toxic creams and slathering my legs with them just so that they appear less cellulite. They don't actually make it go away. And that's a path that I've just decided I'm not going to do that, because I want to keep practicing. Quite honestly, I want to keep practicing expanding. I want to keep practicing being uncomfortable, breathing through it, and recognizing, oh, okay, that falsified story and lie that I exaggerated so much in my head doesn't have to run my life. So I know there are other alternatives, and somebody would say, oh, quit making such a big deal about it. Just go rub some cream on before you go out to the beach so it doesn't look so bad. But it's not something I'm willing to do, because I really want to work through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there will be times when like you can't do anything about it, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
Hide forever.
Right. So you do feel like you've had experiences where you've maybe not fully enjoyed where you were or what you were doing or who you were with. The experience maybe wasn't fully submerged into because you were worried about how you looked.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what do you wish you could do differently for the version of you who missed moments of her life?
I guess just not care as much, because nobody actually cares that much. But also it doesn't always have to be the most important thing. Like when you said that you would miss certain moments when we were on the beach, like that's not the most important thing, but to you it was. But I mean, there was I mean, you think that Dad was thinking about something like that about his body?
No.
I think that's too like something to realize, is that like what we were talking about, how the two women were on the boat were talking about their bodies and none of the men were. It's not that they don't have their own maybe insecurities, but it's just nowhere near as deep, and it clearly doesn't run their life.
Right.
And so I think a part, just taking a step back, and why am I putting so much pressure on myself when there's so many people around me who don't do the same and who are having a great time right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes me equally angry and sad, not just for me or for you, but for every other woman who experiences that. And so how do you, like, as you see it, I mean, I know where I stand, but I'm curious, what do you think has happened that women are so fixated or paralyzed or just overwhelmed with constantly worrying about how they look, the size of their waist or the thickness of their eyebrows, the length of their hair, the strength of their fingernails? Like, why do you think it is literally entrenched in everything that we do?
Because it's because that's how the system is for us. That's how like the toxic beauty culture is. I mean, there's people at 20 getting Botox. Like
Mm.
it's because it's this idea that if you're not perfect, you're not worthy. It's the same thing with the aging. Once you're old, you're not worthy. You're not beautiful anymore. It's people are in panic mode, trying to be perfect. Like girls my own age freaking out. It's literally like a disease.
I think it might be
And it's
actually
a
a
disease,
new
and it's
disease.
not just even like a disease that somebody has it. It's a disease because it's contagious.
Oh,
Because it's like I can be so secure in myself and like not even think about the fact that like when I raise my eyebrows I have wrinkles, and now in the past year it's like I think about that. I'm like, what the, like, why am I thinking about that? Because it's all over TikTok. It's all you hear anybody talk about. Everybody's getting Botox, everybody's getting filler, everybody's like crying about themselves not being perfect, and it is contagious. When it's everywhere, it's in,
oh.
like you always say, it's, you go anywhere, it's all over the shelves, it's all over the magazines, it's all over. Now that everything is face tuned, everything is edited, everything has AI, all the movies, everything is edited, every like nothing is real. So one, you're comparing yourself to these perfect things, and then it's this expectation to be that. It's this expectation to never age. Everywhere, anytime I see any like celebrity on like an Instagram thing or on TikTok, and if she looks really good for her age, minus the fact that she had gotten work done and it's really obvious, but people are like, oh my gosh, she's aging so well. Like that's all they can talk about. And
Mm.
then if she either didn't get work done or she did and she still doesn't look good how they would like want her to look, it's like that's all they talk about.
Mm.
It's just, it's like so, and but that's the thing, it's like all people care about is how people are aging and like what they look like, and this insane fear of aging. Like it's bad.
Well, yeah, and do you think, I just want to clarify something. Do you think it's equally in proportion for men?
No.
Yeah.
No. And it's not that they probably don't fear getting older, but it's just it's not the same.
There is a real double standard. We could do like a
It's
whole episode on the double
yeah.
standard in aging. I think we should come
I
back
mean,
and
we
do that
talk about
another
it all the
time, but
time when you had your hair go gray, and when a guy does it, he's like a silver fox, and when you do it, you're old.
there's not even a word for a woman
You're
when she
just like
does
an
it.
old,
An old maid.
yeah, old maid, literally.
Or grandma.
Yeah.
That's something I've been called on Instagram by men. Okay, grandma.
And because grandma's like an insult,
Exactly.
like
Exactly. I'm like, that's the word. So that's what you're coming for. You're coming for my aging to try to make me feel less worthy or to silence me, which of course is never going to happen. But yeah, this is what we use as an insult. And makes me think about too, I'm blown away at the wild notion that 10 and 12-year-olds are doing get ready with me for school TikTok videos.
it's actually laughable
And
and
there's a section
sad.
like in Sephora now that caters to them. And I'm just curious your thoughts, because I remember when you were 10 and 11 and 12.
Yeah.
And
The most that I wore of makeup was maybe in like middle school, and I think it was mascara. But
hmm,
now these girls, not only are they wearing makeup, they have skincare routines.
yes, with
Full on
retinol.
full on skincare routines. I'm like, I think I washed my face with like Dove.
I,
Like Dove soap, and like and
yes,
called it a day. Like, and
literally.
that's what you should be doing. You're actually damaging your skin more, and then your
Oh,
skin's going to need 15 more products every year to make it like,
uh,
it's just it's a waste of money. It's just the consumerism. It's just, but think about it. When they push, think about how many more customers these things have
yes.
now. These
Oh,
companies have now.
oh, yeah.
Now they have
Get him in at 10.
they have 10-year-olds.
I,
10-year-olds shopping at
I
Sephora.
actually just got like a stab in
Yeah.
my stomach, like
I was
just the
playing with
thought.
Barbies when I was 10.
Yes.
I was playing mermaids in the pool when I was 10. These girls now, like, they're talking like they're like from the valley, and like they have these like TikTok influencer accents. I'm like, babe, you don't even have a childhood. It's so sad.
Yes.
It's so sad.
Yes.
Like, and the thing is, it's like, okay, this is social media. This is also the parents not like allowing that. The parents allowing it, that's a problem. But the thing that I think is interesting too is, one, this was like a whole kind of like meme. Like, this was a joke. Like, oh, this is for a 10-year-old, and everyone was making funny videos because it is funny, but it's also not funny because it's serious and it's sad. But also, this is something I told you, is there's all these there's girls my age, so like 20s, 30s,
Yeah.
who are all like, oh my god, like these little girls, like being like, what are they doing? And I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh.
You're 20 and you're getting Botox.
Mm.
You're just as bad as them. You're their role models. You're the girls that
Yes.
they're watching on TikTok.
Yes.
Like, and you're making fun of them. They're going to be worse than you at your age because of you. Like, it's just
Mm.
sad because I'm like, if all you talk about is like what you look like and how you need to get this done, and come with me to get filler and like all these things, like, it's one thing to get it, but to normalize it so much,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's another thing. In these past few years, it has been normalized so
It's
much.
almost like going
Get your
to,
nails done.
yes, or to get a haircut.
No,
Honestly,
it's bad.
it used to be something people kept like hush hush, and now it's like talked about very
It's
openly. And
normalized, and people freak out if you like even have something negative to say about it. Like, if,
mhm,
if you want to get Botox, that's fine, but why is it so bad if I don't think that it's a good thing? Like,
exactly,
God forbid that I think it's problematic that people are normalizing it at such a young age, or at any
at
age.
any age.
Like, it's one thing to get it, but to normalize it so much and get it on every part of your face and think it's like a trend, and then it's
Oh,
almost like it's so normalized that, again, women are bonding over these things about like what they got done and how they need to get this done. Like,
and I think we won't even begin to understand the medical repercussions of
yeah,
in
I mean,
injecting.
it makes you can't even move your face, and that's not that's problematic.
Yeah, I don't even think we understand what we're doing. And I think that's really also very scary and sad to me, is that it's become as simple as like, I'm going to get my hair
Well, it's
cut.
the lengths that people will go,
Yeah.
but because it's so normalized, it doesn't even seem crazy anymore.
Right.
Like, it doesn't seem crazy that, and the thing is too that it's like, I think I was even saying this to Chris the other day. We were talking about somebody in their like mid 30s, and I was like, I'm gonna be honest, Chris. I couldn't even tell you what age she was because I don't know what 30-year-olds look like anymore.
Oh my gosh, such a
I was
good
like, I
point.
don't know. I don't know what I'm even going to look like at 30 because I don't know what it looks like to be 30.
You can look at pictures of me.
No, but like literally, like, it's crazy. And I'm like, and you know what? It's sad. It's
It's
so
so
sad that
sad.
these women are so young and they feel the need to do that. I'm like, you have a baby and you're getting both. And that's another thing. They talk about how much they love their daughter and they love their son and how much they love their kids. I'm like, it's just so sad that like that's gonna be what they're, and then they're just gonna do the same thing.
The example. I personally find it to be so, an erasure. I find it to be a total erasure of aging faces. I love, and I've talked about this so
Yeah,
many times with you before, like, I truly find it to be one of the most beautiful architectures in the world.
yeah,
And just like trees in a forest or mountains and a mountain range, like, to see all of that history and to see the size and the majesty of it all. That's how I look at humans and human faces and all the intricacies. I think it's incredible. Even the lines on the hand and the sunspots and the arms. And it tells so many stories of a life well lived.
yeah,
And it's, if we just shift the lens that we look through when we look at humans, why have we stopped looking at humans as they're aging as works of art? Why are we looking at people as we're aging, or ourselves as we're aging, and see it as something to be ashamed of, or that has to be hidden
mm,
from any viewing because it's not as worthy? Because if it does come down to worth, because if you actually thought they were beautiful and you were worthy of walking in the world with them, you would not be covering that. If we were a country,
yeah.
if we were a culture, a world who celebrated the lines on your face, then that's
And
what we
just
would
being,
do.
we always say like, oh, they have older people have so much wisdom and respect your elders. I'm like, but you don't even respect what they look like. Like, you don't respect them aging. So that's just something that like confuses me, I guess. It's like we try and act like we put so much like we love older people so much, and they have so much wisdom, and they're so smart, they've lived so much life, like respect them. But you don't respect them because this our culture is ageist.
Yes.
It 100% is, especially towards women.
Yes.
So it's like, and something I thought of when you were talking is, it's like, it's so interesting when you get to the age of being aware of yourself, and when you start to criticize yourself. But even just as a culture, as a society, whatever, when think about this, like we look at babies,
Yeah.
and they, like, you always talk about me when I was younger, I was like this like really fat baby, or like I had rolls and stuff.
Chubby,
Yeah, chubby
like
cheeks
rolls.
and
Yes.
rolls. And now, like, to have rolls is a bad thing.
Yes.
And now it's like, it's such a bad negative thing, like hide that, like, oh my God. But so it's like, but everybody thinks that's cute on a baby. But
Yes.
and it's not even that they're just like, if you have it when you're older, it's like, it's an awful thing. Like, you can't be attractive if you have that.
Yes.
Which I don't think is true, but at the same time, but which is hard too. It's like, I don't think that's true about anybody else, and yet I think that about me, which is hard too.
Yes.
It's like, I think that all women are beautiful, like no matter your shape, size, color, anything. But it's so sad to not be able to give that to yourself.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes.
And I think that's something that women deal with too. Actually, Mia said, she posted this video on TikTok. One of my friends posted this video on TikTok of her like really upset, just saying something along the lines of, when can I give the love to myself that I give to other people, which I think so many women deal with. And it's like,
oh yeah.
And me and my friends always say to each other, like, I wish you could see yourself the way I see you.
Yes.
But then it's like, well, then why, when they compliment me, can't I believe that? Like, if they're saying that about me, why can't I believe them when I get mad at them for not believing me?
Right.
And it's like, why would I even be saying these things if I didn't think them?
Right.
So.
And I think because society's done such a number on conditioning women to not believe that it's possible that the words coming from a friend as a compliment could be true. Yeah. We have been so conditioned to see the littlest amount of worth in ourselves that when someone is saying something, we don't actually believe it's true. We don't believe it's true for ourselves. We've internalized this inherent lack of worthiness so profound that we can't receive a compliment. And I don't know about any of you listeners, but I am very fatigued at this storyline. And the only way anything is going to change is with us as women, first of all, having these conversations. And one of the things I talk about a lot on the podcast is about being triggered. I know women are so triggered by my message at times, by things I talk about, very strong stances I take on things.
Definitely by this conversation.
By this conversation, women are going to be very triggered, and they're going to want to point the finger and make me wrong rather than wonder why they're so triggered. And like you said a little bit ago, we have to be able to have conversations that showcase the opposite side of something. It doesn't mean that I have a judgment about what somebody else is deciding to do, because I know it's coming from a place of not feeling fully worthy. But I truly, truly believe we have to be able to hold conversations that look at the other side as well. Because you're right, it's becoming so normalized now.
It's weirder to not get it.
It's weirder to not berate yourself. It's weirder to love yourself as a woman and claim that openly. It's weirder to choose not to color your hair or do Botox. Yeah. It is weirder to speak openly about not making those choices. And that's why nothing ever changes if we don't ever hold space for the other side of the conversation. Yeah. It's like, come on, we're grown ass women. We have to be able to hear other perspectives and other people's thoughts and opinions. And if you don't like it, by all means, there's a huge sea you can go swim in of people who believe what you may believe. Go for it. I'm here for the women who want a different story. Yeah. And judging by the way things are going in my business and the response on social media and the very short time that I've been on social media, I think it's fair to say women are ready for a new storyline.
Yeah, 100%. They need something else than what we have in front of us, because it's not for everyone.
No.
And it feels very isolating for the women who don't want that. So it's nice that you and anybody else who wants to talk about these things can offer an alternative of just
Yes.
living and
Yes.
not having to.
Without added pressure. There's
Yeah.
already enough pressure being a woman. Now we add these other layers, and then the deeper layers of probably the sickness that's going to creep up in the years to come from all the toxins. But
Yeah.
yes, and one thing I want to say as we close out, is you were saying how it can be very isolating to choose to live this way. As a woman who maybe doesn't want to be berating herself all the time, who wants to speak about the exciting things happening in her life and celebrate them, who wants to choose a more natural aging path, whatever it is. I used to feel that way. And what I decided many, many years ago is rather than telling myself the story, because we get to make anything mean whatever we want. I decided instead of telling the story that this is isolating, because there's very few women standing around who are doing the same thing except like, my best friend. Instead of telling that story, what I have decided is I am telling the story that it takes profound leadership to stand there and be the one in the crowd, in the group, in the sisterhood to choose a different narrative.
Yeah.
So I've changed the story. It's like, no, Amanda, it's not isolating. It's called leadership. Oftentimes, some of the greatest thought leaders of our time were standing alone because their level of thinking about things was so far surpassed where other people had even caught up to. They were considered radical. They were considered renegades. They were considered crazy. But it's often after those people passed on that everybody looked back at their work. Yes.
Yeah.
And what they brought to the world, what they were saying, and they thought, oh my gosh. So usually revolutionaries are a little bit more isolated, but I've decided that just gets to mean like, okay, you're leading a different way, Amanda. And that gets to be okay.
Yeah.
And
Doesn't have to be a bad thing.
No. And that's what you get to do in your circles and in your friendship. You get to be the leader. Women your age need a leader desperately. They don't need another follower. They need a leader. They need a woman who's doing it differently because God forbid they need role models to look to and say, okay, where's she going? I want to follow her path because it seems really liberating.
Yeah.
And really beautiful. Oh, thank you for yet another fabulous conversation on all things women and berating ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's change that storyline, not just for ourselves, but for all the young girls who are watching who need a different narrative.